Prince William just executed a highly calculated, utterly ruthless maneuver that absolutely nobody inside Buckingham Palace saw coming. If you only pay attention to the polished, carefully curated public appearances of the British royal family, you are completely missing the intense, high-stakes power struggle currently unfolding behind closed doors. This entire situation ignited at Balmoral Castle, a sprawling Scottish estate that is historically viewed as the royal family's ultimate safe space. Balmoral is supposed to be the one sanctuary where the cameras disappear, the formalities drop, and the family can simply exist. So, the fact that an incident this severe erupted on those exact grounds makes the fallout infinitely more consequential. According to deeply connected insiders, the day began with standard calm family gatherings. But then, young Prince Louis wandered slightly away from the adults, and what followed was not a simple misunderstanding or a bit of childhood roughhousing. It was an incident that crossed a very dangerous, unforgivable line, and it forced Prince William to fundamentally change the power dynamics of the entire monarchy. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and let's expose exactly why the future king just completely rewrote the rules. To understand why this situation escalated so violently, you have to understand exactly what was said to Prince Louis. Louis was allegedly approached by one of Queen Camilla's grandchildren, and the comments that followed were described by witnesses as genuinely cruel and deeply targeted. This wasn't just kids fighting over a toy. The remarks were allegedly aimed at his family, specifically targeting his mother, Catherine, and shockingly invoking the deeply painful legacy of his late grandmother, Princess Diana. Let that sink in for a moment. Princess Diana is a woman whom William was forced to watch be systematically torn apart by the media and abandoned by the institution. Catherine is his wife, a woman who just survived an incredibly harrowing period of illness and intense global scrutiny. For those specific names to be weaponized against a young, vulnerable child is not playground drama. It is a psychological attack, and young Prince Louis understandably lacked the emotional tools to process it. He burst into tears and ran directly to his mother. What the surrounding staff noticed in that exact moment was not just how devastated little Louis was, but rather Catherine's absolute, bone-chilling reaction. She did not raise her voice. She did not cause a chaotic scene in the middle of the Scottish estate. By all insider accounts, she went completely, terrifyingly still. Anyone who understands human behavior knows that when someone experiences profound anger or deep hurt and responds with utter stillness, it isn't calmness. It is absolute, calculating control. She was choosing her next steps with surgical precision, rather than reacting on pure emotional impulse. Staff members noted that the entire atmosphere around her instantly dropped 10 degrees. She wasn't volatile, but everyone in her vicinity understood immediately that she was absolutely not going to let this slide. When the day finally ended and Catherine was alone with William, she didn't just vent her frustrations. She delivered an emotional ultimatum that changed the trajectory of the monarchy. Insiders described their conversation as incredibly heavy. She didn't just complain about a misbehaving child. She explicitly brought up Diana. She forced William to look directly at how the institution had historically failed to protect his own mother from profound emotional harm, relentless pressure, and toxic internal dysfunction. Her message was unwavering. She absolutely refused to let history repeat itself. She was not going to stand by and watch Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis be dragged into the exact same cycle of emotional turmoil that defined William's own tragic childhood. For William, those words landed with the weight of an anvil. He is not a man who needs to be convinced that the royal institution can cause severe emotional damage. He carries those scars every single day. He was a teenager forced to walk behind his mother's coffin, while the entire planet watched his grief. For years, he has dedicated himself to building a completely different environment for his own children. A home where emotional honesty is protected, not viewed as a weakness. So when Catherine placed the image of a crying Prince Louis directly next to the memory of Diana, it completely shattered William's tolerance for palace politics. He immediately stopped thinking about how to politely contain the situation and started plotting exactly how he was going to eradicate the problem. The very next morning, Kensington Palace transformed into a highly restricted war room. Senior aides and legal advisors were suddenly pulled into closed-door meetings without any advance notice. Internal communications were heavily monitored, and the staff described the atmosphere as unusually controlled. There were no public statements, no leaks, and no external panic. But inside, William was executing what staff privately dubbed the Eraser Mandate. William walked into that briefing room with a meticulously detailed plan to systematically scale back the presence of Camilla's wider family within royal life. We are not talking about a slight reduction in invitations. We are talking about a total, comprehensive purge of their visibility. Balcony appearances, ceremonial roles, honorary participation, and premium event access were all placed on the chopping block and decisively removed. And through it all, William remained entirely calm, precise, and devoid of any explosive anger, signaling to everyone in the room that this was a permanent, unbreakable directive. But the detail that truly sent shockwaves through the institutional hierarchy was how William actually executed the mandate. In the royal family, there is an incredibly rigid chain of command. Decisions of this magnitude are supposed to involve endless consultations, discussions, and, above all, the explicit approval of the reigning monarch. William completely bypassed the entire system. According to highly placed sources, William did not ask King Charles for permission before initiating the purge. He executed the mandate first, and then simply informed his father in writing after the fact. While the letter was reportedly respectful in tone, the underlying message was unmistakable. This was not a request for feedback or an opening for debate. Charles was being notified of a completed action. For the lifelong courtiers who worshipped the established hierarchy, this sequence of events was absolutely staggering. It was the definitive moment they realized William was no longer just an heir preparing to lead. He had officially started leading. When Queen Camilla realized exactly what William had set into motion, the atmosphere inside the palace violently shifted once again. She was absolutely not prepared to accept this mandate quietly. Internal sources report a flurry of closed-door conversations and frantic exchanges between her aides, as she desperately tried to pressure King Charles into intervening and reversing William's actions. From a purely institutional perspective, her argument was completely logical. The monarchy survives on strict hierarchy and consensus, and an heir unilaterally overriding established access sets a highly dangerous precedent for royal authority. She fully expected the king to reassert his dominance and put his son back in line. But Charles did not push back. He chose not to overrule his son, a decision that essentially finalized the transfer of power. When you analyze Charles's current reality, his hesitation makes complete sense. He is battling significant physical exhaustion from ongoing health concerns, and he has spent the last several years completely drained by massive public family scandals, particularly the fallout with Harry and Meghan. The last thing he wanted was another brutal internal civil war. But more importantly, Charles recognized the shifting center of gravity. William and Catherine have built an unshakable foundation of public approval and emotional connection with the people. Camilla's extended family simply does not hold that kind of institutional value. Charles stepped aside, and in doing so, he silently signalled to the entire palace staff that the true power now resides within the Wales household. The British royal family is officially operating under a new set of rules, and the era of quiet compromises is permanently over. Camilla's family is now experiencing a drastically reduced reality. The routine invitations have vanished, and the comfortable proximity to the crown has been methodically unwound. William and Catherine emerged from this crisis not just as the future of the monarchy, but as the absolute architects of its present reality. They handled a deeply personal attack with ruthless structural precision, requiring zero public validation. And for young Prince Louis, the outcome is the most profound of all. His father saw his pain, recognized the ghosts of the past, and proved that this generation of royals will protect their own, no matter who they have to erase to do it.